Good morning, everyone. Yeah, very good morning. Shall we begin the session? Today, I have sent you a message regarding the class that is half an hour prior because I have to leave. Yeah, I have to exit half an hour before. Okay, so let's begin with the session. Chapter number 2, beginning with the C++. So first of all, my question is, what is C++? Okay, just listen. It's an object-oriented language or procedure-oriented language? Anyone can answer. The answer is given over here. C++ is an object-oriented language that was developed by the Britannia Stout Group at the AT&T Bell Laboratory in USA. And this is an admirer of the Simula 67 and a strong supporter of the C that wants to combine both the features of C++ as both the features of the C and as well as the procedure-oriented language. That is a powerful language that could be served, that could support the object-oriented features programming that still retain the power and the elegance of the C. The result was the C++, therefore, it is an extension of the C with the major addition of the C class construct features that is main part or main addition of the original C. Whatsoever the language we are using up, whatsoever the data we are using up, that is used with the C++, that comes from the C, that increment of data, and thereby suggesting that C++ is an augmented version of the C. And during these days, the language underwent with the major improvement that can be done with standardize these results and added the several new features to the language specification. So C++ is a superset of the C. Most of what we already know about C that applies to C++ also. Whatever the feature that we have, whatever the data we have, that features will be supported by the C++. And almost each and every feature. However, there are a few major minor differences that prevent the C from the C++. Now let's see what are the various major differences when they encountered. So the most important facilities that C++ adds to the C are the classes, inheritance, function overloading, and the operator overloading. These features enables creating of the abstract data types, inherit properties from the existing data types, and supports the polymorphism, thereby making C++ a truly object-oriented language. So this is one of the object-oriented features that allows the programmers to build the large program with the clarity, extensibility, and the ease of maintenance that incorporate the spirit and the efficiency of C. Now, let's see what are the various additional features that is available in the C++ as compared to the C. So C++ is a versatile language for handling the very large programs that is suitable for virtually any programming task that includes the development of the editors, compilers, databases, communication system, and any complex real-life application system. These allows us to create hierarchy-related objects, so we can build special object-oriented libraries which can be used later by many programmers. So while C++ is able to map the real-world problems, this also gives the language the ability that is to get close to the machine-level details. So these languages will be provided with the C++ details C language that are the more easily maintainable and expandable code. And whenever a new feature will be needs on or add-on, that gives the machine level details that provides the maintainability and the expandability. And when a new feature needs to be implemented, it is very easy to add to the existing structure of a system. That is expected that the C++ will replace C as a general purpose language in the near future. Now let's see what are the various applications of C++. So that also allows the hierarchy of the related objects such as the built special object oriented libraries which can be used later by the many programmers. And it also used to map the real world problems properly. So the C part of C++ gives the language the ability to get close to the machine level details. Whatsoever the details they have, whatsoever the data they have, they are able to maintain the machine level details. And these programs, that is the C++ programs, are easily maintainable and expandable. And whenever a new feature needs to be implemented, it to be added up, it will add to the existing structure of the main program. So it is expected that the C++ will replace C as a general purpose language in the near future. Now next is a simple C++ program that prints a string on the screen. So this is printing a string, hash include iostream, namespace, int main, cout. C++ is better than the C++ statement, return 0. End of the example. This program features will have collection of the function that include that gives the example that contains only one function, that is the main, and as usual expectations or the exceptions or the executions begin at the main, and every C++ program must have a main function. This is free from the language or free form language, and with a few expectations the compiler ignores carriage returns and the white spaces. So likewise see the C++ statement also terminate with the semicolon. Now next is the comment, how we can give the comment. So comments are given within the double quotes, double slash. That is a single line comment. So these asterisk, star, star, asterisk are still valid and most suitable for the multi-line comments, and the following comment is also allowed. This is an example of C++ to illustrate some of the features. That is one of the example that we give, that we insert with the style comment within the text of the program line. Now next is the output operator, that is also known as the extraction operator. So these operators will be fulfilled, will be given in the response. How will be, so how it will be given with the more response with the output operator with the extraction operator. So that causes a string in the quotation mark that will be displayed on the string, and this statement also introduced into new C++ feature, that is the cout and the double slash. And this identifier cout, pronounced as the cout, is also a predefined object that represents the standard output stream in C++. Here the standard output stream also represents the stream that is also possible to redirect the output to the other output devices. So the operator extraction is known as the insertion of the put to operator. It inserts or sends the comment of the variable to the right of the object. Next is what is the use of iostream file. Now the next part is the iostream, that is a header file that indicates that includes with the preprocessor to add the content of this one or add the content of the iostream file to the program that contains declaration for the identifier cout and the operator, that is the insertion operator. And some older version is also known as the file, that is the iostream.h. And this is one of the changes introduced by the NSI, that we are giving with the only the iostream or the iostream.h. That should be included with the beginning of all the program that use the input-output statement. And note that the naming conventions for the header files may vary, and some implementation also uses the iostream.hpp, yet another with the iostream.hxx. That depends upon the, or that must include the appropriate header file for depending on the content of the program and the implementation. And these table or these provides a list of the C++ standard library header file that may be needed in the C++ program, that will be given with the .h extension with the old files that should be included with the old compilers also. So this table also gives the version of these files that should be used with the MSI standard compilers. Now, what are the various commonly used old style header file? That is the assert.h that contains the macros and the information for aiding the diagnostic that aids the program debugging. New version is C assert. Next C type.h, and the new version is CC type.h, float.h, C float, limits, C limit. So these are the various new version that is available. Next one is the math.h, then C math. Yesterday again we are using the C instead of this one. IOStream.h is only the IOStream, IOManip and the fstream. And this utility contains various classes and the functions that are used by the many standard library header files. And these header file also contains classes that implement the standard library containers that stores the data during the program execution. That contains classes and the functions used by the algorithm of the standard library. The next is a memory that contains the classes and the functions used by the standard library to allocate the memory to the standard library containers. Then iterator that contains the classes for manipulating the data in the standard library. Containers, and then algorithm that is used to manipulate the data in the standard library containers. Then exception, std except, string, stream that performs the input from the string in the memory and output to the string in the memory. Then locale, then limits, type info. That limits with the foundation, that limits with the type info of data. Now, namespace is a new concept introduced by the NSI. This defines a scope for the identifier that are used in a program. For using the identifier that is defined in the namespace scope, we must include the using directives. So using namespace std, that is the namespace where the NSI C++ libraries and all NSI structures are defined are used within this directive that brings the identifier that is defined in this space, that is the using and the. So that is defined within the stdi.h namespace.h, where the class libraries are defined that are defined within the header file also that brings an identifier defined in the std to the current global scope using an namespace. The next is the return type of the main. So in C++, main returns an integer type value to the operating system. Therefore, every main in the C++ should end with the return statement. Otherwise, a warning or an error message will also occur. And since main returns an integer type value, that makes a warning or an error might occur. And since the main returns an integer type value, return type for the main is also used as a int that will define or that will defines for the return type for all the function that is used as a int. So the following main without type and the return will run as following. So main function, then there are the dot that is given. So more C++ statement that is given over here with the how to use or how to make the keyboard and display over the screen or display the average of the screen. Now let's see this program to find the average of two numbers. So this is the iostream.h. Then there is a using namespace std that is the same. Then int main float number one, number two. So there are two numbers that will be taken out of the float category only. Yeah, sum and the average is also the float category, so we can also declare in the same line. So float number one, number two, sum average. So see out insertion operator, enter the two numbers, prompt, that means wait. Then see in number one, number two. So two numbers are read out with that reads the number from the keyboards, number one and the number two. Sum equals to number one plus number two. So first of all, we are calculating the sum with the number one is adding to the number two. Then average is calculated as a sum divided by two. Yeah, there are two numbers, so sum divided by 2 is the average. Then at last we have to print the sum, that is with the cout and with the cout average. So there are insertion operator, extraction operator that is used. At last there is a return 0 for returning with the int main. So the output of the program is as follows. Enter the two numbers 6.5, 7.5. Sum is a 12, average is 7. Now next is the variable. So the program uses four variable number number one, number two, sum and the average, and they are declared as a type float by the statement. So float number one, number two, sum and the average, and all these variables must be declared before they are used in the program. So they are the two operators. That is the input operator C in number one that causes the program to wait for the user to type in a number. And the number keyed in is placed is the variable number one, and the identifier Cin, pronounced as a Cin, is a predefined object in C++ that correspond to the standard input stream. Here this stream represents this keyword. This extraction operator or the get from operator that is known as that takes the value from the keyboard and assign to the variable that is given. This corresponds to the familiar of the scanf. So like insertion operator, that is a double arrow, the operator can also be overloaded. That means we can also use in the same line. Insertion operator or the extraction operator. This is the object C extraction operator variable with the use of keyboard. This is cascading of the input-output operations, how we can cascade with the use of the two operator at the same line. So first sends a string sum to the cout, then sends a value of sum, and finally it sends a new line character so that the new or the next output will be in the same line. So the multiple use of the C in the one line is known as the cascading. So when cascading an output operator, we should ensure that we are necessarily using or blank spaces between the different items. And using the cascading technique, the last two statements can also be combined. Cout sum and average. So this is one statement that provides the two lines of output. Yes. Now these lines are contained within the same block or in the same different block. That depends on the scenario that we are using. So if it provides in the same line that provides only one line of output, that is the cout sum and the average. So output will be the sum 14 and the average is 7. And we can also cascade with the input operator, that is a extraction operator that is shown above. So C number one, number two, and the values are assigned from the left to the right. That is, if we key into the two values, say 10 and the 20, then the 10 it will be assigned to the number one and the 20 will be the number two. Now another example that is used with the class. So one of the major feature of the C++ is classes that provides a method of binding together data and functions which operates on them. So like the structures in C, classes are also user-defined data types that binds the data, that binds the function with the one another. So likewise, the structure can also be used in the C. They are also classes are also user-defined data types. This is one of the example of the class. This is the IOStream namespace class person. There are two variable data members, that is the name 30 and the age. Within the public void get data, void get display or display void. So we are using the get data void, we are using the get data function. Enter the name, enter the age, display void, name and the age, int main person p dot get data, p dot display and return 0. So this will provide with the example how the C++ will be used with the class. So what is a class concept? So when we see about the class, that is a that is a user-defined data type in which we are defining the data members and the member function. So whatsoever the data members, whatsoever the member functions we are getting up, that will be built up, that will be used within the class. So yeah, these variables provides a binding on the data that operates on them, like a structure in the C class. There are also the user-defined data types that shows the use of the class in the C++ program. This is one of the example with the class. That main example will be used how to use the class, how to make the class understandable by the we can say by the data. So this is the example with the class that used with the structure, that uses with the concept of the structure. The classes are also the user-defined data type that displays the use of the class. This is the hash include IOStream using namespace std class person char name int age. Then public void get data, void display, void person get data, enter the name, enter the age. So void person display, see out the name and the age, then int main will be the person p and the p dot get data and the p dot display. So class structure is, we can say that there is a data members in the member function that defines with the structure, that defines with the particular parts that will be used to display the data as well as the functions. So these are the predefined data. These are the predefined member that will be used to display the data, that will be used to mentally we can say that display the data, that is either the name and the age. Now this is the output of the program. Enter the name Ravinder and the age 30. Now the name will be displayed as Ravinder and the 30. So this program defines the person as a new data of the type class that will include the two basic functions, that is the program function. These two functions will be given as an object of these data types. Yeah, we have done with this one, but the last note is left out. Cout can read only one line, therefore we cannot use names with the blank spaces. For the blank spaces or for the space, we use the gets instead of cin or the cin dot get line. So that's all for today's session. If there is any clarification, any doubt, you can clarify the doubts.